a promise of more story to be told, and a director with plenty of ideas under his belt might be the two reasons a franchise needs to give the green light to another installment of the Pacific Rim franchise. A movie that could go on to become so much more. Maybe even a story that could lead to a massive crossover with the Monsterverse, while we are at that too.
Let's get it done! That's what I'm talking about!
One of the biggest breakthroughs in the giant monsters genre was made by Guillermo del Toro, who did the fans a favor by bringing the Pacific Rim franchise to the big screen back in 2013. And rather than playing in an established franchise sandbox, he opted to invest everything in his arsenal into the Kaiju genre, with the movie doing quite comfortably at the box office, which would go on to signal there is a sequel coming our way. And not a lot of time has passed. We got the news about a sequel already being in the works in the form of Pacific Rim Uprising. This time around, a different man helming everything, and that person was Stephen DeKnight, who was also the co-writer of the movie, together with Emily Carmichael and Del Toro only serving as the producer of the movie. The sequel released in 2018, and with such an epic spectacle already part of the franchise, fans are eager to know what happens next. A desire which sadly by now has not been fulfilled by the franchise, as we are still waiting for a third movie, yet another sequel filled with monsters and men. We are saying this because the franchise itself looked very promising. It still is. But what are the chances of Pacific Rim 3 happening? Well, despite nothing having been said about it, the fans should not jump the gun and leave the franchise, as we think there's still hope for something more. At least a complete trilogy before we move on from the Kaiju.
There are pilots we remember as legends.
Regarding the story of any movie from the genre, many will say that it is not the story of the movie, but rather the effects of the movie, and all the giant monsters battles, and the destruction of the city the battle is being fought. Well, we're here to tell you that many of those people are talking nonsense, as Pacific Rim is the perfect example of that. Despite 2 movies under the belt, there is still a lot of stories to tell, questions need to be answered, and even more of a backstory to be given about the events that have happened, but also about the ones that are about to unfold in the potential Pacific Rim 3. Thus, it makes complete sense that we get another Pacific Rim movie from the franchise. Plus, the second installment ended on a hopeful note, as the humans celebrate their victory over the precursors. In the final moments of the movie, Jake tells Newt that the humans will have to take the next step and go to the place from where the precursors and Kaiju originated from, in an attempt to end them for good. The line itself seems to have planted the seeds for another sequel, a movie that would not only go deeper into the backstory of the precursors, but also take the entire story in a whole different, fresh direction.
I think I could get used to this.
The man who started the whole thing and was there for the sequel has announced that he is not returning to the franchise. Following the modest success of the first movie, as we said before a sequel was born, which Guillermo only produced. However, the timing was also an issue, as Del Toro decided to leave the franchise after the second movie to shoot The Shape of Water instead, a movie that would go on to win an Oscar for Best Picture. And yes, sometimes directors tend to circle back to a franchise after they have left for a sequel or two. But the recent news from Del Toro seemed to be clear that he is not coming back. But he managed to keep our heads busy as he did tease us with the thought of both the Pacific Rim franchise and the Monsterverse as coexisting in the same space. So maybe he is looking at some kind of a crossover sometime in the future. Who knows? We will have to wait and see for ourselves. When we are at the crossover side of things, Warner Bros. And Legendary have announced that currently there are no plans for a third Pacific Rim movie, which makes sense if you take a look at the performance the second movie that the franchise had. However, other rumors have been spreading that plans have been put in place for something big, with all of the plans pointing to the fact that Del Toro's proposition would have ultimately been proven correct. You know, about the both Pacific Rim and the Monsterverse that now has Godzilla and Kong are in fact set in the same universe. Thus, we should not be surprised if a third movie ever comes on the radar. It would likely end on the note that a crossover will be the next big thing, with the monsters and Jaegers of the Pacific Rim franchise joining the likes of Godzilla and King Kong. As for how it would have happened remains to be seen, but that would be huge, literally and figuratively. This could go on to be one of the biggest moments of the franchise and the MonsterVerse as well. And if that happens, we think that we will be saying for everyone that all of the previous critics would be meaningless and forgotten as fast as possible. We are looking at you, Pacific Rim Uprising.
We're gonna need more pilots.
We have them.
DeKnight has done a decent job with the second movie, and regarding all the rumors and speculations about the upcoming movie, he has already spoken about his ideas for the third installment, with him continuing on what Jake had to say with his line in the movie, and also assuring the fans that if a sequel happens, the character of Mako Mori will have a whole additional backstory, which is understandable, considering she was one of the central characters in the latest movie. He went on to say that he is not allowed to share anything more other than that there is a concept about a third movie and how Mako could play a big part in the potential sequel, with her storyline as it stands right now far from complete. She has had her time in the franchise, with her life ending in the sequel. However, being brought back in some way would surely be a satisfying moment and an incredible character addition to the plot of the movie. One of, if not the most tantalizing bits from DeKnight about his vision for the Pacific Rim 3 movie, if it is given the green light, was shared during an interview who teased all of us with an idea of getting the band back together. His exact words. This was also one of the last comments we got from DeKnight regarding the third installment of the franchise. So if you take into consideration everything said about the potential movie, you can see that there is hope and source material for it to happen. The only thing the movie needs right now is the budget to be laid on the table. With everything being said and the financial cost of the previous two movies, we will have to really hope that somehow, some way, the movie will be given the green light, as we think the franchise itself deserves another shot at all of it, a chance that could go on to lead to a pretty massive crossover that we would all like to see, right? On a related note, tell us down in the comments below, what are your thoughts on the franchise, and which element of the movies has been the one to keep you on the edge of your seat? But also, what would you like to see in the potential third sequel of the franchise? Feel free to share your thoughts on it down below. And also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you would like to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.